I know there is a land of beautiful flowers where we'll meet again when life is whole, where we'll while away the endless hours on heaven's bright eternal shore. Welcome to Out of the Blue, number 308. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that song and why it's significant. So a lot of this Neo-Swedenborgianism is speculation based on the idea that the police are coming. Well, guess they're not coming for me this time. Based on this thing we see today in our world, of these near-death experience people saying that what they saw was more real. So, and this is a recurring thing. It's happening all the time. There's always some new book out on it or some new account. And so, as I've said before, there's generally two reactions to this. There's A and B. The A says amen, and the B says BS. And we, Neo-Swedenborgians, are a third option, which is C. A, amen, B, BS, C, which stands for SEE, the word see as in observe. So it is observable that this is a recurring phenomenon, that a person has had this experience and they come back and they say it was more real than this everyday life. This happens in a clinical setting, which is a hospital, and it is observed by scientists who are medical professionals. So, but what we're doing is we are thinking about the implications of a perceived greater reality. Because if this, it seems to me this has already been shown to be a consistent phenomenon. Now, I understand that is debatable, and so that's where we're beginning. We're beginning from this point where I'm saying, if this is a consistent, observable phenomenon, then what else? Everything else I'm going to say. So everything else I'm going to say rests on the idea that the person saying, "I've seen a greater reality." Their heart stops in the hospital or wherever it happens. They're revived and they come back with this story of a greater reality. So if that is a consistent and observable phenomenon, then there's all these implications from that. Okay? And so if you disagree that it is a consistent and observable phenomenon, then you're not going to come along on this journey. So it's an if-then type situation. So it appears to me that this is an observable, consistent phenomenon. And it appears to me that it is extremely similar to the experience that Swedenborg had in the 1700s. And there's some other people through history who have had a similar experience. Now, when it's just one guy from 1775 or a few people here and there, that's not significant. But when it's happening on a daily basis, all across the world, then it becomes significant. And it's happening more and more for two reasons. One being the advances in medical technology that are enabling us to bring people back better after their heart is stopped. We're getting better at that. And also, there's this thing of this huge generation called the baby boomers, who are all approaching their own demise. And so there's a generation, an aging generation, a large generation, and then there's also this medical technology which is improving, combining to create this, as I'm saying, observable thing, quantifiable and observable, happening in clinical settings, observed by scientists, wherein they come back and they recount something that, from their perspective, they say was more real than this world. And so, the believer, the person who says amen, this tale that this other person tells supports their belief. So they say amen. And they think that this person who's telling this story, that they had a glimpse of an actual heavenly afterlife. The B person who says BS, they think it's, well, I can't really speak for that person. I can just speak for C, for us Neo-Swedenborgians, both of us, or at least all three of us. We can say this is observable. It does not prove an afterlife. What it proves is an experience within human life. Because since all these people are back talking to us, they weren't all the way dead. They were just close to dead. So since they were not dead, this experience then is a part of life. And if it is a part of life, it fits under the scientific banner of biology. So I'm not talking about anything supernatural. What I am talking about is something that is natural, is within the banner of biology, but appears supernatural. And so we, humans, individual humans, can be fooled, and things can seem to be real that are not actually real. And if you look at this spectrum of how real something seems, like sometimes there's a new video game and the graphics are so real. And what we have with this account of people saying it was more real is you have something that is a +1 on the spectrum, so to speak. Let's say there's a video game and it's so real, but it's not quite as real as everyday life. So everyday life, this reality that we share, would be 1 on the scale. And maybe an Atari from 1980 might be 0.1. And the latest graphics on the latest computer might be 0.6. And now we have this account of people coming back and saying, I saw this thing and it was more real. So that might be a 1.1 or something like that. It's greater. It appears to the individual to be more real than this. Okay. So they come back, and for them to be honest, they've seen both these realities, and they say that this other one was more real. And so if we think about that, what it means if there is a consistently perceived greater reality. And the bad news, this is the bad news of Neo-Swedenborgianism, is it brings us full circle back to this worldview where we have an afterlife that we enter. So it is no longer an actual afterlife out there somewhere. It is this perceived greater reality within our own psyche. So that's Neo-Swedenborgianism. So Swedenborg said we go to this afterlife. But the afterlife he describes matches his civilization and his culture. And so it stands to reason that his mind was imprinted with his life experience, his civilization, his culture. And so these experiences were within his own mind, because he doesn't say anything beyond his own culture, beyond his own civilization. For example, he visits the planets that were then known. And Martin Gardner uses this to debunk Swedenborg, because he didn't talk about any planets that weren't then known. But the fact that he only visits the then known planets, Swedenborg, supports what I'm saying. It supports Neo-Swedenborgianism, because it supports the idea that he was actually traveling within his own psyche, within his own mind. Now, that brings us back to the current day, which is that we have psyches and we have minds. And the question then is, well, what kind of experience might we have? And it's a speculation, but it's also extremely personal speculation, because your civilization, or our civilization, our culture, our lives imprint on our subconscious. And if we look at this as a deception, we look at the so-called afterlife as a deception, which is it is a deception, but it is also apparently more real than this everyday life, because we don't have any outside reference point, because your eyes are closed, you're in the hospital on a table, you're in your own head. So that's sort of like being in a theater of the mind. And so it brings us back to these kind of gospel bluegrass songs, like this Ralph Stanley song that I'm singing, Prettiest Beds of Flowers. I know there is a land of beautiful flowers. So speaking Neo-Swedenborgianistically, I can say, I know there is a land of beautiful flowers, because it is recorded in clinical data. What I don't know is if I am ever going to see it. So there's a quantifiability to this whole phenomenon. It doesn't happen to everyone. It doesn't even happen to most people. It happens to less than 50%. So while I can say rationally that I know there is a land of beautiful flowers, I know there is a land of beautiful flowers, where we'll meet again when life is old. I cannot say definitively that I know I'll experience it. I cannot say for sure that I know I'll see it. I can only say for sure that I know it exists, because it comes up consistently in the data. All right, so welcome to Out of the Blue.